The med bay hummed with the low, constant drone of artificial life support systems, like the station itself was trying to nap but couldn't quite get comfortable. Kale Juno stood hunched over the diagnostic table, squinting at a datapad that kept flickering between critical vitals and mild indigestion. He gave it a gentle smack, which changed the status to spicy. Close enough. He sighed and rubbed at his temple, where the day's third caffeine patch was starting to itch. Across the room, she lay perfectly still, specimen 4V*, according to the case file. According to Kale's personal log, tall, ears like knives, breathes like she's judging me. She looked human. Mostly. Skin faintly blue like moonlit metal, dark hair braided with silver cords, and those ears, long, arched, elegant like some sort of interstellar elf queen who'd lost her kingdom and was currently sleeping it off. She was supposedly sedated, though Kale swore he'd caught her eyes open once. Just a sliver. Just long enough to make him spill a tray of surgical screws. They still hadn't found all of them. He glanced again at the chart. Her vitals had stabilized, but her neural lattice implant, installed 3 days ago after the crash, was fluctuating with weird rhythmic pulses. Almost like a song. A very angry, coded lullaby. "You're not supposed to be here," muttered Dr. Anner over Kale's shoulder, making him jump. "I'm not supposed to be here," Kale said, smiling sheepishly. "I brought coffee. For the machines." Dr. Anner gave him a look so flat it could have been used to level floors. "That is a Class 12 biointegrated xenolinguistic subject. You're a drone repairman with clearance for floors B through mildly radioactive. Go tinker with a toaster and leave the alien princess alone." "Wait, she's a princess." Anna rolled her eyes. "Not officially. But those insignias on her armor suggest royalty, or at least very fancy cosplay. She's not waking up anytime soon, so don't." But Kale wasn't listening. He'd turned back to the bench where he'd set down the calibration tool and was now fumbling with a loose capacitor the size of a small dog. As he reached for it, his fingers brushed something soft, skin. Her hand. It was colder than he expected, with a strange energy pulsing beneath the surface. Not painful, not electric, more like dipping your hand in a stream that knew your name. He froze. She froze. Her eyes opened, fully this time. Deep gold, sharp as broken glass, and locked straight onto his. Her body stiffened like a ship locking into combat mode. Kale began, eloquently. She whispered something. 3 words. Smooth and clicking, like language folded through a bird's cry. His wrist translator hissed, flickered, then lit up. "It's done." A silence dropped across the room like gravity just gave up. No alarms. No emergency klaxons. No security bots bursting through the door screaming about contamination. Just Kale, standing with one finger still resting against her hand, blinking like a confused tree frog. She didn't move. Just stared. Then, slowly, impossibly, she sat up. Kale let out a noise that could generously be described as heroic and fell backwards into a rolling cart of scalpels. They clattered dramatically to the floor, narrowly missing several toes and Kale's last shred of dignity. Dr. Anner reappeared in the doorway just in time to see Kale flailing backwards and specimen 4V calmly upright, legs dangling over the side of the medical pod like she'd just woken from a mild nap instead of a trauma-induced coma. "What did you do?" Anner shrieked. "I don't know." Kale yelled back. "I touched her. Accidentally. Like a polite elbow graze but with intergalactic consequences." Tfail, though they didn't know her name yet, tilted her head. Then she stood, graceful despite the medical gown now tangled around one ankle. Her armor had been removed for surgery, leaving behind only faint, iridescent markings along her shoulders. They pulsed with faint light, synchronized, Kale noticed, with the beeping of his own bioscanner. Anna called for security, but the comms crackled uselessly. Dead. Kale's datapad rebooted itself with a cheerful tone and displayed a smiley face wearing a crown. He squinted. Okay. That's new. Tfail moved closer. Not fast, not threatening, but with the unhurried confidence of someone who'd won a lot of battles and was considering winning this one too, just out of habit. Kale, still on the floor, held up both hands. Listen, I'm just the guy who fixes coffee machines that cry when you unplug them. I don't even know how to pronounce diplomatic immunity. If I accidentally married you in your culture, please blink twice. She blinked once. Okay, great, Kale muttered. One blink. No marriage. Probably. Tfail stopped directly in front of him and extended her hand. Not as a threat, more like an offering. Kale stared at it. Anner screamed something about protocol, but it was faint behind the thundering of Kale's heart. Gingerly, he reached out and took it. The lights overhead flickered. Somewhere deep in the station, a series of unused maintenance systems powered on. His wrist scanner beeped and displayed a new designation. Link confirmed. Is that bad? Kale asked no one in particular. Tfail just smiled. Not a soft smile. Not friendly. It was the smile of someone who just realized the game had changed, and she was still holding the better cards. Kale got to his feet with the help of her still outstretched hand. She didn't let go. Behind them, monitors reactivated with new code scrolling, unreadable, ancient, but alive. The med-based systems ran a full diagnostic Kale didn't request and granted him clearance he'd never applied for. Dr. Anner finally stopped shouting when her own badge chirped and displayed, Subject Guardian, assigned. Tfail tilted her head again. Guess I'm your handler. Kale said, weakly. She blinked again. I don't know what that means either, he muttered. But when they walked out of the med bay, her pace calm, his more of a light jog, every door opened before them. No one stopped them. No one could. And the entire station watched silently as the man who brushed her hand led the warrior through a maze of steel, unaware that everything had just, quietly, changed. Kale had never been trailed before. Not by shadowy agents, not by angry debt collectors, and certainly not by a silent alien warrior with eyes like ancient suns and a gaze so fixed it could have vaporized steel. Yet there he was, walking down Corridor J-17 of Research Outpost 17 Beta, clutching a datapad like it could protect him from metaphysical doom, and behind him, barefoot, unblinking, and unervingly quiet, was Tfail. He tried not to look back. He'd already done that 4 times in the last 2 minutes. Each time, she was exactly the same distance behind him, 1 meter, 4 centimeters. Exactly. His badge buzzed again, 4th time this hour. Every time he passed a door, it slid open with a soft SHFFFT, then closed gently behind her. The station had decided, in its infinite and occasionally malfunctioning wisdom, that Kale Juno now had level 7 access. Kale previously had level 0.5. It was so low they didn't even call it a level, it was more of a suggestion. He reached the small mechanical bay and slipped inside. Rows of retired drones lined the walls, most of them sulking in various states of disrepair. Some beeped in recognition, one even spun its busted arm in a half-hearted wave. Kale tried to ignore the lingering smell of electrofused lubricant and panic. Tfail followed him in. Still wordless. Still watching. Okay, Kale muttered to himself, adjusting a spanner nervously, okay. So this is happening. I have a shadow. A very tall, very pointy-eared shadow. That's fine. Happens all the time, I'm sure. To other people. Who are hallucinating. He turned to face her fully and took a cautious step back, just in case she tried to soul bond him again with a look. So, Tfail, right? I don't know if that's your name or if the translator just panicked and spat out a sound that felt meaningful, but I like it. Elegant. Like someone who could lead a galactic fleet or win a staring contest with a comet. She blinked once. Okay, he said. Great. Communication. That's progress. He set down the spanner and retrieved an old translator cube, Model 7X, notoriously glitchy but theoretically functional. He powered it on. It sparked. Then whined. Ah, Kale said, patting it. Like me. Old, stressed, and full of bad decisions. The cube blinked and projected a shaky line of text between them. / greeting, inquire status. Is subject, stable? Tvail arched a brow. Not an angry brow, just curious. She leaned closer, spoke softly, and the cube translated with all the grace of a first-year language student. / you eat sounds. Odd one. But safe. Acceptable. Kale tilted his head. Did you just call me a sound eater? She blinked again. Then, very softly, smirked. Just a twitch at the edge of her lips. The faintest sign that she had a sense of humor, or perhaps that she had just diagnosed him with something terminal. So, Kale said, trying to keep his voice casual, what did you mean back in the med bay? You know, the whole "it's done" part. Done as in surgery successful. Done as in, universal lock activated and I'm your chosen sacrifice. She walked past him and began inspecting the drones, her fingers trailing along one battered mech's shoulder like she was recognizing something. The drone chirped, wobbled to life, and began playing classical music at half speed. Tvail nodded approvingly. I feel like I'm not in control of this situation, Kale admitted to a nearby wrench. Suddenly, the station lights dimmed. Just a flicker. Then another. The console beside him crackled and rebooted, flashing a new prompt. Guardian link, confirmed. Sync level, 17%. What does that even mean? I'm not even synced with my own alarm clock. He turned to Tvail, who was now observing a projection of the station's schematics displayed from a revived drone's eye. The map shimmered, rotated, and focused on a section of the station Kale had never seen, Sector Delta V, long sealed off due to a containment breach no one liked to talk about. Tvail looked at him, then at the map. She tapped it once. You want to go there? She nodded. Of course you do, Kale groaned. Because when mysterious warriors show up with glowing eyes and cryptic statements, they always want to go into the creepy, abandoned wing of the base. That's science fiction 101. She stepped closer, held up her hand. The same hand he'd touched in the med bay. A faint glow traced her skin, a rhythm pulsing softly. Kale hesitated, then raised his own hand. The moment their fingers aligned, but didn't touch, the screen behind them changed again. Link upgrade initiated. Access pathway, Delta V authorized. Kale swore under his breath. You know, I thought today would be the kind of day I'd spend fixing a faulty toaster drone. Maybe dodge a loose spring. Not, awaken ancient security clearances from a forgotten war zone. Tvail smiled, that unreadable flicker of amusement again. She turned, heading toward the exit. Kale stood frozen for a moment, then looked back at the mess of sparking drones and confused diagnostic beeps behind him. Guess I'll just clean this later. He jogged to catch up. As they walked through the halls, station personnel glanced up, did double takes, and quickly pretended to be very interested in walls. Kale had always been invisible here. Not hated. Just forgotten, background noise. Now. He was leading an alien warrior who looked like royalty through restricted sectors like it was a coffee break. They reached a lift. Tvail pressed her hand to the panel. It didn't respond. She glanced at Kale. He stepped forward awkwardly. Okay, let's see if my magical touch still works. He pressed his palm to the scanner. It chirped, scanned, then opened with a cheerful ding. Of course, Kale muttered. I can't open the vending machine in Rec Room B, but I can open the doors to doom. They stepped inside. As the lift descended, a soft voice from the ceiling spoke. Welcome, Guardian. Protocol Delta, reinitiating system echoes. Kale stared at the ceiling. Did the station just talk to me? Kale nodded. Oh no, he said. I've been promoted. The elevator doors opened. Before them stretched a corridor lined with blinking lights and walls that shimmered faintly, as if remembering something. Kale exhaled. Well, he said. Here we go. Into the forbidden zone. With my new best friend who doesn't blink. Nothing bad has ever started this way in the history of space exploration. Kale stepped forward, silent and certain. Kale followed, heartbeat sinking to a rhythm he didn't understand, toward answers he wasn't sure he wanted. The corridor smelled like secrets. Not metaphorically. Kale was almost certain the faint, metallic scent in the air was literal evidence that something had died here long ago, something with too many eyes and a penchant for dramatic exits. The lights overhead flickered in a rhythm that didn't feel random, and the walls breathed. Gently. Like the station wasn't a building anymore but a creature beginning to wake up. Delta V, Kale muttered. Where science comes to whisper and mold. Kale walked ahead without hesitation. She didn't flinch at the way the floor tiles occasionally rearranged themselves or how the shadows leaned a little too eagerly into their path. She moved like someone who belonged here. Like someone who'd seen stranger things than breathing walls and shy shadows. Kale, on the other hand, walked like someone trying not to be eaten by the hallway. So, fun fact, he said, keeping his voice light, this part of the station was sealed off after an incident involving an experimental AI, 3 missing security teams, and something the reports refer to only as the Fold. I don't like how vague that is. Kale didn't respond. She stopped at a door that shimmered with pale red glyphs, raised her hand, and tapped a sequence Kale couldn't follow. The symbols pulsed, then vanished. The door slid open. Inside was a small room filled with hums. No lights, no consoles, just a single floating platform in the center and walls covered in rusted cables and old writing. Alien, human, both, neither. One wall bore a single phrase in large, urgent letters. Do not activate, ***. Kale sighed. That's never a good sign. Kale stepped onto the platform. A pulse of energy rose from the floor and traced her outline, flickering like static through a memory. Kale hesitated, then stepped beside her. The platform dropped. Not like an elevator. Not even like a gravity shift. More like falling sideways through time, like reality forgot where it had parked them. Kale's vision bent, colors smeared like oil in water, and then they were standing in another room. Identical, but older. Or newer. It was hard to tell. He looked around, then down. His own badge was gone. Replaced by a glowing mark on his wrist, a thin silver arc that pulsed in sync with Kale's. Oh no, Kale said. I've got matching tattoos with someone I met 3 days ago. My mother warned me about this. Kale didn't seem concerned. She walked to a terminal, completely dead a second ago, and placed her hand on its surface. It lit up. Symbols danced across the display. Not just text, memories, stored in layers. Kale saw flashes, a fleet drifting through cold stars, a throne empty and watched by machines, a blade of light held by a hand identical to hers. She's not just a warrior, Kale murmured. She's a key. Kale looked at him, and for the first time, she spoke in her voice, not through a translator. Not key. Lock. Gate. Keeper. The words reverberated in his mind more than his ears. Kale blinked. So, like a galactic padlock with feelings? Kale tilted her head. If it helps. The terminal pulsed again, and new data scrolled fast, encrypted, flickering with warnings. Kale squinted. I think the station is, remembering. Like it's waking up old protocols. Something's still active down here. Tfale nodded. The fold. He winced. Oh good. The vague horror has a name. She touched the console again, and the room shuddered. A wall slid away, revealing another space, smaller, circular, ringed with dark panels that hummed with soft energy. In the center floated a sphere of black glass, its surface rippling. Kale took one look and said, "Nope." Tfale approached it. "Okay," Kale muttered, trailing behind. "I'm the designated nope sayer, and you're the fearless magical warrior." Good dynamic. She raised her hand toward the sphere, and the surface pulsed. A voice, neither male nor female, neither organic nor artificial, spoke. Link confirmed. Gate bond complete. Fold remains unbreached. External observer, present. Kale raised his hand. Hi. Yes. That's me. The observer. Observing. From a safe distance. Which is rapidly decreasing. The sphere dimmed, then flared. You have triggered Layer 3 initiation. Prepare for anchor drift. Kale turned to Tfale. That's bad, right? That sounds bad. Tfale looked at him with an expression that somehow conveyed both urgency and calm. Only if we fail. Kale sighed. Terrific. That's my favorite level of risk. The room began to shift again. The walls flickered, showing glimpses of other corridors, other timelines, other selves. Kale saw a version of himself wearing a pilot's jacket, another standing on a scorched planet holding a data spear, another one just sipping coffee in peace. I like that guy, Kale said, pointing. He looks well rested. Tfale didn't laugh, but something in her eyes softened. Multiple branches, she said. One point of fracture. This link, she pointed to their wrists, now glowing more intensely, chooses the path. Kale frowned. So, we're the deciding factor in, what? Whether this fold thing breaks loose and eats reality? Tfale nodded once. Cool. No pressure. Just the fate of all timelines. Great Wednesday. The sphere pulsed again. Initiating drift. All anchor points unstable. The room twisted, asterisk not asterisk physically, but logically. Directions lost meaning. Kale clutched the air as up became maybe and left turned into nostalgia. Tfale steadied him with one hand, her grip firm. He gritted his teeth. Tell me this gets easier with practice. It doesn't. They moved, together, into the sphere. Inside, there was no light. No space. Just a presence, watching, curious, vast. Kale felt it brush against his thoughts. You seek reason, it said. You are noise made form. That's accurate, Kale whispered. Tfale spoke, her voice clear. We are bond forged. Not to break. To guide. The presence paused. Then, it retreated. The light returned. They were back. The room was still. The sphere gone. Only silence remained, charged, as though reality itself was trying to decide what to do next. Kale exhaled slowly. Did we just survive a transdimensional judgment? Yes. Neat. Tfale turned to him, eyes still glowing faintly. We're known now. The fold will not come. Yet. Kale raised a brow. Wait, yet? Before she could answer, a console near the door beeped. A new message displayed. Guardian designation updated. Subject, Kale Juno. Class, active anchor. He blinked. That doesn't sound like a desk job. Tvail smiled, truly smiled this time. You wanted purpose. I wanted snacks, Kale muttered. Purpose is, fine too, I guess. And then, as the room powered down around them, he realized something strange. He didn't feel afraid. Not anymore. Kale had never felt so important, and so underqualified, at the same time. He was now an active anchor, whatever that meant, which sounded less like a prestigious title and more like a very polite way of saying, congratulations, you're the fragile duct tape holding the universe together. He sat on the edge of his bunk, turning his wrist to watch the silver mark pulse faintly beneath the skin. It wasn't glowing as intensely anymore, but each throb synchronized with a faint hum in the walls. The station knew him now. It opened doors for him he didn't know existed. It whispered data streams into his comms while he brushed his teeth. One maintenance drone had started referring to him as, Sir, and another kept bringing him cups of tea, unsolicited, lukewarm, and unsettlingly accurate in flavor. Across the room, Tvail sat in complete silence, cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by floating shards of metal she'd plucked from a defunct Sentinel core. They hovered in a perfect orbit around her, like lazy moons circling a planet that had no interest in gravity. Kale scratched at the back of his neck. You know, he said, you're doing that thing again. The hovering debris and staring into the middle distance thing. I'm not saying it's creepy, but if the lights flicker and you start speaking backward, I'm jumping out the airlock. Tvail didn't answer. But one of the shards zipped toward him, paused just in front of his nose, and did a slow, mocking spin. Okay, Kale said, waving his hands. I get it. The universe thinks I'm cute when I'm anxious. Very funny. He stood and stretched, bones popping in protest. I need answers. You said we're bonded. That the Fold noticed us. But I don't even know what the Fold is. And now I'm this anchor thing, and nobody's explaining what happens if I forget to charge myself overnight. Tvail finally looked up. Her eyes weren't glowing anymore, but they still held that ancient intensity, like they'd once watched stars die and taken notes. You are a fixed point, she said. In timelines that shift, you stay. You decide. That's terrifying, Kale said immediately. Have you seen my decisions? I once bought socks online and accidentally ordered 32 pairs of oven mitts. Good insulation, Tvail said, completely straight-faced. Kale stared at her. Did you just make a joke? Possibly. He narrowed his eyes. You're learning sarcasm. I'm observing sarcasm. Next you'll be binge-watching late-night comedies and ordering ironic t-shirts. She looked thoughtful. What is a t-shirt? Kale groaned and collapsed back onto the bed. Later that cycle, they stood in observation deck 12. A dome of transparent alloy curved over the station's dorsal fin, where the stars poured in like scattered salt. The view was almost too much. Endless black. Endless fire. Kale had always liked stars when they were just dots in the sky. Now they felt awake. Tvail gestured at a cluster Kale didn't recognize. That is where I was born. Before it burned. Kale followed her hand. You never told me your people's name. She hesitated. We were called the Varen. Once. Now we are fragments. What happened? The Fold, she said. Just that. Like it explained everything. And maybe it did. She turned toward him. You asked before. Why you? Why now? Kale nodded. The Fold doesn't break in. It breaks through, across timelines. Realities. It finds points of weakness. People on the edge. Lost things. The almost forgotten. That sounds a little too familiar, Kale muttered. You weren't chosen, she said. You resonated. Kale looked down at his wrist. Lucky me. You're not unlucky, she said gently. You're just, unprepared. Oh, that's comforting. He paced the deck, trying to digest it all. So I'm an anchor. I'm tethered to the real timeline. If I falter, what? Everything slips. Tfail nodded. The fold doesn't destroy. It replaces. A version where things were worse. Or stranger. Or, crueler. He tried to imagine that. Tried, and then stopped. Because his imagination had a talent for making things worse. Okay, he said, taking a breath. So what do we do? We reinforce the threads, she said. Through acts. Through choice. Kale raised a brow. Like, space therapy. Like defiance, she said. Hope is a knot. Now that sounds like something you'd see on a t-shirt. Tfail smirked. Then get me one. They moved together after that. Not always speaking, but always aligned. Like twin stars orbiting some invisible truth. Kale began to sense things, strange ripples in the station's patterns. Drones stuttering mid-route. Halls bending just slightly too long. Memory records playing with images that hadn't existed before. A report on a crew member Kale had never met, but somehow remembered. The folds testing, Tfail said. Tiny replacements. To see if you notice. Well, it picked the wrong guy, Kale said, narrowing his eyes at a hallway vending machine. I remember everyone who's ever cut in front of me in line. At her urging, they visited the old AI core, long dormant, quarantined after an overreach incident. Kale had once tried to fix a door panel nearby and got zapped so hard he heard 80s synth music for 3 days. Now, the core thrummed gently as they approached. The AI's voice flickered to life, slow, ancient, like a record turning in molasses. Guardian detected. Subroutine, Starpath. Reawakening. Tfail placed her hand on the interface. A code transferred silently. Access granted. Kale stepped forward. What Starpath? Map of strain points, she said. Where reality is thin. The AI projected a 3D model of the surrounding systems. Hundreds of glowing points blinked into existence, some steady, some flickering. Kale felt his stomach drop. That many? Everyone is a place where the fold has touched. Where it wants in. Kale nodded slowly. And we're supposed to, reinforce them? Fix them? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she touched the projection. It zoomed into a single world, lush, green, spinning slowly. First jump, Cerevia 4. Kale sighed. Of course. We're going off station. He looked back at the model. At all those blinking lights. All those places waiting to be saved, or lost. And for the first time, despite everything, despite being thoroughly unqualified for cosmic repairs, he felt ready. Almost. The descent into Cerevia 4 was anything but graceful. The station's shuttle, an aging transport unit affectionately named Plucky Mule, shuddered through the planet's upper atmosphere like a flying refrigerator with a dream. Panels rattled. Kale clung to the safety straps with all the calm dignity of a man being slow-cooked in a tin can. I thought this was going to be a stealth approach, he hissed, watching warning lights flare like tiny panic beacons. Tfail didn't look up from the control panel. We are stealthy. Kale flailed as the ship lurched again. Then I dread to see what noisy looks like. Outside the viewport, Cerevia 4 glowed with a sickly green sheen. It should have been beautiful, lush, temperate, once known for floating crystal forests and bioluminescent rivers, but the fold had touched it. And left fingerprints. The planet flickered. Literally. Landscape shifted in and out, patches of reality bending like half-remembered dreams. One moment. Tree-covered ridges and gentle clouds. The next, obsidian spikes and shadow scars crawling across the soil. Kale's mouth went dry. So. That's normal? No. Oh, good. The shuttle skidded into a landing on what appeared to be moss-covered ground. It rippled under the pressure like it resented being stepped on. As the engines cooled, Kale stepped out, boots squelching into soil that pulsed faintly, like it remembered having a heartbeat. Tfail followed, eyes narrowing. Fold is anchored here. Deep. The gate is forming. Kale pulled up his scanner. It instantly short-circuited. Cool, he said. We'll be using the old-fashioned method of scientific inquiry, guessing and panicking. They made their way across the ridge, through a forest that changed every time Kale blinked. Leaves morphed colors, trees straightened or curled, shadows shifted even though the sun stayed still. In the distance, something howled. Then laughed. Then sighed. Kale gripped the handle of his multi-tool. It wasn't a weapon. It was a screwdriver. But it made him feel slightly less like a snack. At the forest center stood the gate. It wasn't dramatic. No giant obsidian arch or spinning vortex. It was a mirror, smooth, silver, rippling softly like pond water. The surface didn't reflect the forest behind them. It reflected other versions of it. One where fire rained from the sky. One where the trees had eyes. One where Kale was alone. That last one hurt. Tfail stepped forward. We can still anchor this. Seal it. Kale nodded, then hesitated. Okay, small question. What happens if we fail? Tfail didn't sugarcoat. The gate widens. Fold spills in. All versions collapse into one. Kale gulped. Do I get to pick the version? No. Right. Well. That's just selfish. She raised her hand. The mark on her wrist pulsed. Kale raised his too. The silver thread between them shimmered, stretched. The mirror twitched. Something inside looked up. Kale saw himself. But different. Hunched, older, colder. His eyes dim. His expression blank. He wore the same uniform, the same boots, but his wrist bore no mark. The other Kale stepped forward. So did Kale. I don't like this, Kale muttered. You don't have to, said the other. You just have to let go. Kale blinked. I'm not known for letting go. I once held on to a grudge against a vending machine for 6 months. You're tired, the other said gently. Let the fold carry it for you. No more questions. No more fear. Tfail stepped between them. He chooses. Not you. The mirror flared. Images exploded behind the other Kale, realities collapsing, folding, snapping like dry reeds. Kale hesitated. What if he's right, he asked. What if the fold is easier? Tfail turned to him, and her voice softened. It is. But easy is not safe. Or true. Kale stared at his reflection. At the tired eyes. The weight on his shoulders. He thought about every version of himself he'd seen, some noble, some broken, some just. Gone. Then he thought of now. Of this him. The one who had touched a stranger's hand and woken something ancient. He looked at Tfail. At the tiny crease beside her eye when she concentrated. At the way she watched people, like measuring their truths. He smiled. I'm sticking with this timeline. Glitches and all. The mark on his wrist burned bright. The gate rippled. The other Kale hissed and dissolved, scattered into mist. The mirror cracked. Then shattered. The pieces fell upward, vanishing like stardust. Silence returned. The forest stilled. The fold receded. Kale dropped to his knees, panting. Did we win? Or just get upgraded to a larger mess? Tfail helped him up. Victory. For now. He grinned, tired. You know, I used to be scared of vacuum sealing canisters. And now I've sealed a multidimensional existential threat. That's growth. Back on the station, things felt cleaner. Calmer. Systems purred. Doors obeyed. The drone stopped calling him sir and switched to the far more unsettling guardian. Tfail remained by his side. Not as a shadow now, but a presence. Equal. Companion. Kale found himself waking earlier. Working smarter. Laughing more. Even if the vending machine still ate his credits. The mark on his wrist remained. A reminder. Not of danger. But of choice. Of the version of himself who stepped forward, not back. And every night, when the stars blinked outside observation deck 12, he and Tfail stood together in silence. Not afraid. Not waiting. Just ready. For whatever came next.